and now we'll have one. So, I mean, the whole point is mayors at the local government level, as was said earlier, we make decisions that really do affect people's lives, and you can generally measure that. You either filled the pothole or you didn't. You either plowed the snow or you didn't. Move the abandoned car. So, I mean, we're going to plant trees, we're going to change our zoning code, we're going to reduce our greenhouse gases, we're going to ensure that buildings that get built, at least by us, you know, have a certain LEED certification, and on and on. And we'll put out a report every year, which helps to keep our feet to the fire and communicates, which is more important, to the public as to what we're doing. This can't just be like happy talk and a nice conversation. Again, you either did it or you didn't. And mayors, I mean, our job is to get things done. I said this in Chicago last week at the Mayor's Institute on City Design. We could not get away with the kind of nonsense that goes on in Washington, D.C. We would not survive. So, I mean, it's just, so we're very proud of the plan. We're very excited about it. Some things we'll accomplish sooner than others, and it goes back to what you said, whether it's about public safety or other things. Some are longer-term initiatives. It will take a while to do all the infrastructure stuff, because first you have to actually have some money to do some of those things. Some will be shorter term, others will be longer term, and I'll kind of close with this, at least on this part. Part of the problem, when you ask Sergio about politics, so most of us are in 4-year terms. We have term limits in Philadelphia, so maybe you get 4, maybe you get 8. Political people often think in chunks of time in 4 and 8-year cycles. Well, city's going to be around a lot longer after I go, whenever that is. So we really should be thinking in 20, 30, 50-year time frames and making decisions based on what's going to happen 50 years down the road, not, well, you know, what am I going to get done on my watch so that I can get credit. I'm more interested in results than I am
credit. Sergio, Fajardo, Mayor Nutter mentioned infrastructure. In addition to the beautiful public space we saw that you built there, and we could go on, and people should look at just the, he's not lying, these architecturally distinguished, gorgeous public facilities. You also, in an amazingly brief time, physically reduced the barriers that separate the poor people, middle-class people, rich people in your city, built this tramway that apparently for the first time allowed the people to flow around your city in a way they hadn't before. How were you able to do all that so quickly? Where did the money come from and the political will?
Well, we did a lot of things, and they are so marvelous that everyone asked me, where did the money come from? That's very common, because it sounds unreal that in Medellin, in Colombia, they could build such wonderful things that were supposed to be for millionaires. And that's what we did in politics when we said the most beautiful things for the poorest people and the humblest people. So people couldn't believe that we could go to the poorest part of town, the most violent part of town, and build the most beautiful building ever built. So that people say, oh, there's something wrong here. I mean, coming from Medellin, narco traffic, all these things, how come it wasn't done somewhere around here? But we did it. We did it with our taxes. People paid taxes as they have never paid before. Sure. And here you have to put taxes on the richest people here too in this country, I think. We didn't steal a single peso. And that's very powerful, because we took a peso and we gave back to our society that peso, and immediately it would multiply. And we showed that whenever we had something, we will do it. So more people will trust us, more people would pay, and we didn't have a struggle of classes in Medellin, but we showed, and we managed to show the whole city that what we were doing was good for every single one in there. So we raised our land taxes. That's one of the taxes that we have at hand in our city that goes directly to our city. Remember, I should say that our political system is very different from here. We have a centralized country. The decentralization goes around the cities. It's very different. We don't have a federal state. Now, we had a tax that we paid in Colombia cities, which is industry and commerce. It deals with the commercial activity that we have, and we get some for us. And we have something very remarkable, which is the public utilities company is ours. It's public in the sense that it's owned by the city of Medellin. And the revenue that that company makes, they give us a portion of that revenue so that we could go back to the city with social enterprises, so that we had money from 3 different sources, some more. The central government has to give us money. I mean, it doesn't depend on a political relationship, but it's a formula that gives us some money. And as I said, we knew what we were going to do. We didn't get there to see what happened. We had been all our lives saying this should be done. Once we got in there, we said we are going to do it. And something very powerful happened, which is, as I said, no, don't steal. You know where you're going, charge your taxes, build the trust, people will pay, and do it. Now, we had the power of ingenuity that worked in many senses. I had never had any public position. I'd never been into any public office whatsoever, and I'd been only to one, which is I got in this building with this huge desk, I am the mayor of Medellin. But we had organized our minds. We had a group of wonderful people, honest. They had knowledge, they knew what they were doing there. We didn't have to split the city around political interests. Say, you supported me, so then you have this part of the city for you. Zero for the citizens. Then we had this love, deep love for the city. We have the social sensibility. And that's the magic of all these things. And these things can be done, but you have to dream them first, and you have to know it. And what we did was we worked every single second since I was the mayor of Medellin. We worked, we recognized no obstacles. We said we're going to do it, and we did it. We built hope. That's what I always mention. We built hope. It doesn't mean that violence finished, but hope is something different. And we did it because we wanted to do it.
John Fetterman, speaking of money, how much do you make as mayor of Braddock, Pennsylvania?
$150 a month.
And what is the town budget?
You could get a nice 2-bedroom apartment here in town.
Really?
$1.6 million.
And you, however, from Levi's and other profit-making nonprofit groups have collected other funds for your renovations and so forth. At this point, are those kinds of non-governmental sources doing most of the revitalization that's happening?
Yeah, it really is. And in fact, the very generous honorarium that I received for appearing here tonight is going to our new playground. You know, so. And that's not to say that we're going to start slapping logos on everything and like if you want it, we'll sponsor it. And, but when you're in a community in a region in the Mon Valley, which we're a part of, you have to hustle. And if it's not going to come from the government, and it sure isn't coming in Pennsylvania with the budget cuts and everything, as my colleague on the end can tell you, they're cutting education, they're cutting full-day kindergarten programs, and they're giving away the store to the Marcellus shale gas industry. So you got to kind of make do on your own. And the honorarium goes a lot further in my town than it would in Mayor Nutter's town. But these less than you, I'm sure. But at any rate, yeah. So it's those kind of dollars that have really allowed us to really improve the quality of life through a lot of these projects. I can't aspire to a platinum LEED certified building. I feel like I've succeeded if I've kept the building out of a landfill, so.
You have a great quote that I read, and I'm sure you're the first elected official in the United States to have ever said, "I dig this town's malignant beauty." But beyond the malignant beauty, do you have a goalpost, a sense of when you will feel like I have been successful at this quixotic quest?
No, I think if anyone from this audience came and drove through our town this week, you'd be like, what has he done? Because it's like, you still drive through it. It's like, I was at a presentation, someone from San Francisco, they said, our city has an appalling lack of green space. And I followed in that presentation, I said, my city has appalling abundance of green space. Not 90% of the town's in a landfill. So it's a very shocking visually to a lot of people. You see a giant steel mill dominating. If anyone's familiar with Gary, Indiana, think of us as like the little brother of Gary, Indiana. You've got this massive, massive steel mill that dominates. You've got incredibly concentrated poverty, and you've got a crumbling, deteriorating, vanishing infrastructure. So we have a lot of different challenges in that way. And the whole malignant beauty thing is that it's an incredibly historic place, just like the wreckage of the Titanic or something. It was something that was huge. It was something that was beautiful. It was something that's supposed to last forever. And 90% of it is gone. I mean, Andrew Carnegie stood across from where I live now and said, here's your library. This is going to go on forever. And he was, the Bill Gates of his day. And you consider the moral of that tale there, that no matter how good you think it can get, there's it can be a big downside if you don't have the 50 years ago, if somebody would have said Braddock would look like it was today, you saw what it looked like 50 years ago. Did anyone think that could it look like today? So that's our challenge.
Well, if you all aren't inspired after this hour and a half, then you've been asleep. I want to thank Mayor Nutter, Mayor Nichols, Mayor Fetterman, and Mayor Fajardo. Thank you very much.